Yesterday I was in Des Moines, Iowa. Prior to that I was in Detroit. And I split my time between Los Angeles and Detroit. How many of you are familiar with the Los Angeles area as a whole? Okay. Now, right now, I'm privileged to live, up in the hills in one of those houses. When I was a kid, I used to live in the flatlands, right? And in the flatlands, we always used to look up at the castles in the hills, and we always used to wonder, what's it take to get there, right? How come those people live up in those castles? Because, they live in castles compared to our, I lived in a little one-bedroom shack with my single mother. And so, now I'm in that privileged position, and I just reflect back often about what it was like to wonder how to get there. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about teaching entrepreneurship, which is what we do at Visalus, right? The reason why I'm so excited is because a mentor came into my life when I was 18, by the grace of God. I'm a very spiritual person. A mentor came in my life and taught me about entrepreneurship and taught me how those people lived in those castles. And I realized it wasn't that different than the way we were living in the flatlands. We were actually entrepreneurs. We were just entrepreneurs with an I in front of our legality. Illegal entrepreneurs. I went to this little school that's called a continuation high school. You guys have those out here, right? You know what I'm talking about? From the freshman year on, I was in continuation, which means you had to be really bad to get kicked out freshman year of a normal high school. And I spent the next 4 years, and if you don't understand how continuation high schools work, they take all the bad kids from all the schools and then put them in a school together. Right? So what bad kids learn in those schools is how to become really bad kids. I mean, there was a lot of entrepreneurs in that school, though. There was import-export specialists. There was people who could tear apart a car faster than Detroit could build one, that's for sure. I mean, it was an amazing thing. And I remember studying and looking at these systems, right? I got to see the middle class, because before my dad walked out on my family at 13 years old, we were in the middle class. And I got that ripped away from me. And it's amazing because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have that middle class environment ripped away, as many people, and I know people in this room have felt that. And then I got to go into abject poverty. I mean, we were so poor, Kraft's macaroni and cheese was about all we ate. That was it. And I cannot eat that stuff to this day, because, if I see a box of powdered Kraft macaroni and cheese, it gives me the chills, right? So that's the type of environment that I was raised in. I share that with you because I want to share with you, there's steps in the process, and there's things you have to learn as an entrepreneur to go from, living in the flatlands to whatever your castle in the hills is. Whether that be that you want to provide for your family or provide for your children the best education or whatever it is that you're looking for out of Visalus. There's steps to get there. But if you take the steps like you've been trained today, there's a high probability if you take the steps that you'll get there. And that's why I'm so passionate about the form of entrepreneurship that we built. So the second story I want to tell you is how I went from 260 pounds down to about 200 pounds. Actually, since Project 10's been launched, I'm probably about 195 right now. And when I went through that process, I had already sold my company. I was about 24 years old. I was up to 260 pounds. And, I guess chunky would be an understatement, right? I kept throwing out my lower back. Any of you ever throw out your lower back? Do you know what, I don't know if you haven't experienced this. It was so debilitating that I would literally drop to my knees. And then the bathroom would be that far away in my little apartment. And I'd have to crawl to it. And it would take me 45 minutes just to make it from here to there. Some people are smiling because they know what that pain's like. So I was 24 years old. I just sold my company, Sky Pipeline, for 20-something million bucks. I had all the time in the world, and I decided I was going to get focused on my health. And when I decided I was going to get focused on my health, the first visit I made was to a doctor, right? Because I was throwing out my back. It started once, and then 6 months later it happened again, and then 3 months later it happened again, and then it started happening about every month. And so each time I'd throw out my back, I'd be bedridden for days on end. I would have shooting pains. I'd have to take painkillers, which I hated the idea that I'd have to take painkillers just to do everyday functions. And I went to the doctor, and what do you think the doctor told me? Nope, he said spinal fusion. right? Lower back, kept slipping out. There was no way to get that thing back in. Let's fuse the spine together. And I'm an engineering-minded person, right? So I ask questions. Because that's how I was, my formal training is in engineering, which happened later on. And I asked the doctor, what's the risk? And he goes, well, my hand could slip, right? You could be paralyzed. Because he has to tell you all that stuff, right? I don't know this doctor, maybe he's drinking the night before, who knows, right? I'm gonna let him operate on my back. And I said, well, what happens if, you pull off the surgery, what could happen? And he says, well, you might not be able to jump again. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love basketball, that's my sport. So I was like, I'll never be able to jump again, that's the type of risk I have to take? And so I had a wake-up call, meaning that thing that just hits you over the head, and you're like, I have no choice. I have to get my health in gear, right? There's wake-up calls. Hopefully some of you get a wake-up call here with something that was said at this event, or hopefully some of you are here because of a wake-up call that hit you. But a wake-up call, like literally you realize you've hit tolerance, you have no choice, you're gonna solve the problem. You're sick and tired of it, right? I was sick and tired of compromising my life, of not feeling good, of walking kind of strange. I was sick and tired of it. So I went on this journey to lose 60 pounds, and if you add the shift in muscle and fat, it was a lot more than that. And on top of my refrigerator, I'll never forget this, in my apartment, Marina Del Rey, I had about every type of shake you could imagine sitting on top of the fridge, right? And, in different varieties and different kinds, because, you have to supplement in order to lose weight in this day in society, in order to, to maximize and peak your efficiency. Why? Because it's hard to procure good foods. Even though I had all the money in the world, I didn't have the desire. I'm not one of those people that carries around like a medicine cabinet full of vitamins and minerals and flaxseed oils and, God bless you, I love you health fanatics, but I don't have that type of time. I have a full-time job and a commute, and I live in an apartment with a convenience store underneath it, or I used to live in an apartment, but I don't have my own organic garden in the backyard. I don't have the time to, grow and harvest my own chickens and take care of that business. Right? And neither does anyone else in our society, but maybe one or two people, and God bless you. So on top of my refrigerator, I had about one of every type of things, and I had so many different, essential oils and vitamins and minerals in my medicine cabinet that I'd take so many in the morning, I would get full. You guys know what I mean? Like so many. And then the shakes. Let me just tell you about some of our competitor shakes. I know this stuff because I had to take them all day long in order to get the result. And what happened was I found that I couldn't sustain it because one, I hated the taste. Or two, if I liked the taste, I couldn't break it up without it, bursting in my mouth, and I'd have a chalk sandwich, right? You guys know what I mean? So there was a lot of, or three, it was all protein, but it didn't have balance of fiber and, the different vitamins and nutrients that were necessary for me to make this a constant thing inside my environment as opposed to a short-term solution. So, so I went on this weight loss journey, and that was right when I met up with Nick and Blake. So they told me about Dr. Michael Simon's invention, the Vipack, and a number of his other patents, and I realized I could have this stuff shipped to my door, right? So I don't have to run out and then go back to, the store and procure them. I could have it consistent, shipped to my door. And so to me, that was the first reason why I fell in love with the idea of Visalus, was I could have the highest quality nutrients that I knew that I needed to support my lifestyle, so I could have the optimal energy, the optimal, productivity in my life, and I could have it shipped to my door, right? And I didn't have to go run out all the time and go source them all over the place. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Simple stuff. So, and to me as an entrepreneur at the time, this was prior to me, taking on the role of being a co-founder with Nick and Blake. To me, it was like, if you could give me 1% more energy, that was worth millions of dollars to me as an entrepreneur. 1% more a day. That's 365% more a year. If I'm 365% more energetic, passionate, enthusiastic toward the work I do and the people that I work with, what's that worth? Let alone what it's worth in terms of your personal relationships. So to me, it was simple math. And Nick and Blake will attest to this. I said, ship it to my door. And they said, what's your credit card number? Okay, you guys are a little slow today. That was me getting sold by Nick and Blake. And then from there, got focused on how could we, take Dr. Simon's work and the work of Dr. Witherly and then apply it toward shakes, apply it toward our Nero products. And so I guess the moral of the story I want to share with everyone in the room here is at Visalus, we have the best scientific team in the world, but we sit in the room as consumers. Like we live on these products ourselves, as does all 500 employees on the inside of the walls, literally. Every single one of us lives on those products. So that's the story of how myself, Nick, and Blake came together. And in fact, this March will be our 8th year of Visalus's existence, right? So our NST is going to be an amazing celebration. Our 8th year together, as a company. We'll be right around our $1 billionth in revenue at that time. We'll have the massive success of all of you who take action here today from the words that you've learned and the teachings that you've learned and get out there and build your business. We'll have tons of people celebrating absolute victory and absolute change in their life. And that's why I'm so excited about the National Success Training. So I hope every single one of you is registered for that. If you haven't, make sure you register before you leave here, because it's going to be a fun time. I promise you this. We're going to put on a big show because it's, your boy's hometown, all right? I don't know if I've told, so I do have ADD, so those in your back, you have to follow me here. So, I love you too. So, all right, so the next story that I was going to tell you, and this is really important for us entrepreneurs in the room, and I've learned how to do this, not only because I was raised and having to overcome adversity, and that was, due to some poor parenting decisions, and then I had to learn how to overcome my own self-imposed, adversity, making poor decisions, and then, the story of Visalus is, mediocre, humble beginnings that turn into a massive success are about, the recession hitting us, and myself, Nick and Blake, and some of the leaders that are in this very room here, figuring out how to overcome adversity, right? So, the last story I have to tell you about being a successful entrepreneur is mastering the ability to overcome adversity, whether it be a recession that hits, I can say check, stupid decision that you made. Believe me, I got 100 of those I could rattle off here, but you guys don't have the time of day for that. Or something that happens, loss of a loved one, a family member, a crisis, something like that. And I've seen so many entrepreneurs. I gave a talk to a group of venture-funded entrepreneurs in Detroit on behalf of a billionaire who has an organization there, and they asked me, what's the secret? And my answer was, I've seen so many entrepreneurs fail when adversity hits them. I've seen so many entrepreneurs, they go through a struggle in their marriage, their relationship, their friendship, their mom gets sick, their dad gets sick, their brother gets sick, something bad happens, and I've seen that just wipe them out. And so I want to give you some things to think about, because I got to go through some pretty interesting, I guess would be the best word, adverse events as Visalus started skyrocketing. March 26, 2010, my mother fell down a flight of stairs. And she came down, they found her 10 hours later, air vac her to the hospital. She had to have 10 hours worth of brain surgery. They removed half of her skull, tubes coming out of her brain, tubes in her tracheotomy, feeding tubes. We didn't think she'd have a chance to live, but I'm a spiritual man, and so I resuscitated. All right? So what happened was they got her to a point where she was in a coma, and she's on life support. And I regretted that decision that I resuscitated for many, many months. And they got her to life support, and then they put her in a care facility, and she literally sat there in atrophy, rotting away for 18 months. As, I had to move to Detroit, I had to focus on building our Visalus business. What I learned is a little thing called compartmentalization. Right? Because obviously I have responsibility to more than just one family, right? I got responsibility to many of your families, 500 plus families on the inside of the walls, thousands of families on the outside of the walls. And so, we couldn't lose